Hello class, in our lecture today we will be discussing how Markus Zusak, in his novel The Messenger, utilises a variety of literary devices such as first-person narration, dialogue and deus ex machina to explore the key idea, finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. This idea will be examined through three separate themes: ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things, small gestures can have a big impact, and the power of fiction to transform the real world. Right, let's start with examining how Zusak utilises first-person narration and setting to illustrate protagonist Ed's development and to present the key idea that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things. Zusak uses direct characterization and interior monologue to illustrate Ed as the epitome of ordinariness, describing Ed's aforementioned laziness and community appearance as a local deadbeat. Through this, we are immediately able to sympathise with Ed, the taxi-driving prodigy. Further, Zusak utilises first-person narration in conjunction with a pessimistic tone to portray Ed as having no real career, no respect in the community, nothing. Through first-person narration, Zusak provides us an insight into Ed's inner conflict, whilst through the use of pessimism, Zusak gets us to envision Ed as a lazy, meek, practically pointless guy. Moreover, Zusak uses setting, where Ed is born in an absolute dump, to further depict Ed's description as a character that he has nothing. Additionally, the use of personal pronouns, "I come from one of the bad parts," indicates to the reader that even Ed believes he is pointless. Also, Zusak utilises the archetype picaresque to illustrate Ed as a rascal from a low social class that becomes a hero for the underdog. We can clearly see how Ed's story conforms to this archetype as we see him grow from the epitome of ordinariness to achieving extraordinary things. Through this, we can learn from Zusak's novel and understand that our stature in life does not define us. Subsequently, Zusak's use of setting and personal pronouns enables the readers to depict that ordinary people, no matter where they come from, can achieve extraordinary things. Next, we will discuss how Zusak utilises dialogue, personification and emotive language to depict how small gestures can have a big impact. From the beginning of the novel, it is evident that there is an impression to the card, the Ace of Diamonds. Zusak's foreshadowing insinuates that the reader is about to meet a diamond in the rough. This occurs when we are introduced to the character Miller Johnson, a beautiful diamond succumbed to loneliness. Zusak uses emotive language through Ed as he watches Miller eat salad and loneliness, illustrating her overwhelming despair. Can anyone tell me another technique that Zusak uses to depict Miller's sorrow?
Personification. The old-fashioned kettle whistled till she went over and soothed it.
That's a great one. Zusak also uses personification and emotive language to not only portray Miller's loneliness, but also to show the reader Ed's next so-called mission, to relieve Miller of her sadness. Further, Zusak uses dialogue, "I've been looking for you," to convey to the reader that Ed's small gesture to Miller was becoming Jimmy Johnson, her deceased husband. This small gesture gives Miller the liberty from her personal grief and illustrates how small gestures can have a major impact. Consequently, through Zusak's use of dialogue, emotive language, and personification, he illustrates that small gestures can have a big impact. Now, let's have a look at how Zusak uses deus ex machina, metafiction, and dramatic irony to explore the idea of the power of fiction can transform the real world. For those who are unsure, or just to clarify, the technique deus ex machina refers to the unexpected power saving a seamlessly hopeless situation, particularly as an artificial plot device in a novel. Zusak evidently utilises deus ex machina in his novel by introducing himself to Ed as the person who created his world and, most importantly, delivers the messages. Through this, Zusak forces the reader to explore the text with a new perspective. Can anyone tell me where this is evident?
At the beginning of the novel, Ed is called a dead man by the gunman, which at the time is interpreted as just an angry criminal. However, it is actually a critique on his value as a human being.
Exactly. This statement is actually referring to Ed's lack of career and respect, and through this, we the reader are able to identify that the cards, messages Ed was completing were not only for those he helped, but also to give him a sense of self, some meaning in his life. Furthermore, we the reader are impacted as we see Ed, the epitome of ordinariness, achieve extraordinary things, which makes us think if he can, anyone can.
Isn't that an example of dramatic irony too?
Yes! Also, another use of dramatic irony is in the dead man reference, where the use of the word dead is ironic as we come to understand that it is referencing to Ed's fictitious state, rather than a threat. Additionally, Zusak utilises a metafictional framework where he self-consciously alludes to the literariness of his work. This can clearly be seen when Zusak writes himself into the novel, explaining to Ed that he instructed that man to brutalise his wife, and that he made Ed. As you can see, Through Zuzak's use of Deus Ex Machina, dramatic irony, and metafiction, we are able to see the important theme, the power of literature can transform the real world, can be applied to our lives as the reader. That finishes our lecture today. I hope all of you will email me any further questions you have before next lesson, whereby I will be handing out the assignment. Before next lesson, I want you all to examine the novel in its entirety, where you will find that the idea of Ed receiving cards is metaphorically representing the cards people are dealt in life. This can be interpreted as, whilst those are the cards you are dealt, you choose what you will do with them. To summarise what we went through today, we examined the 3 key themes within the novel, which you can apply to your own assignments. We first looked at how Zuzak enables the reader to recognise, through Ed, that ordinary people can achieve the extraordinary. Next, we examined how small gestures can have a big impact through Ed's selflessness with Miller. And finally, Zuzak's debatable use of Deus Ex Machina to show the reader that the power of literature can transform the real world. Evidently, Zuzak illustrates through Ed that we can find the extraordinary in the ordinary, which we can also take as a personal message to the reader to learn to find the extra in the ordinary. Thank you for coming. I'll see you next lesson.